Hi, my name is Britt. I am 45 years old and I've decided to launch a channel called Mutant Mother, Wife and Autistic too. I used to have a blog, I still do have a blog called mutantmotherwife.com, but I don't write on it often enough to really call it a blog. It's more, I tend to get something in my head and have to put it on paper, and it's long. I hope to be entertaining, but I just don't do it often enough, and I thought a YouTube channel might be a better way to reach out to people and maybe help them. Mutant Mother, Wife and Autistic too. Why did I call it this? Well, number one, I'm a mutant. Not in a really cool X-Men, Wolverine, rogue kind of way. That would be brilliant, but more in a spontaneous genetic mutation, the egg hit the sperm and something went awry kind of way. I have an incredibly rare genetic disorder called osteopathic striatal cranial sclerosis, or OSCS. It affects 2 in 3 million people. In my family, it started with me, and technically, had Darwin's theory of evolution worked, it would have ended with me. It's what's called a bone dysplasia. It affects your skeleton. It gives you an extremely large head, which takes you about 40 years to work out which hairstyles will cover the weird funky shape. It gives you what's called really prominent frontier and anterior lobes, so our head is in the shape of an anvil. It makes you hypermobile, so all your joints are really bendy, and hypertonal, so you have low muscle tone. It means that I have got rather narrow tubes, so I have what's called genetically simple ears. The inside of my ears are really narrow, and it's called an X-linked dominant genetic disorder. So as a woman, if you have it on your X gene, you will carry it and also have it and pass it on. You have a 50% chance of passing it on to a child. I have been pregnant twice. My first baby, Zach, was a baby boy, and that is how I discovered I had the genetic disorder, because it is incompatible in life with boys. He got the full whack of it and unfortunately was stillborn at 5.5 months. 2 years later, I had my daughter Zoe, and as luck would have it, she also inherited the genetic disorder. She's 11% more affected, and it was supposed to be milder in girls. However, it tried to kill her at birth, and as a result, she now has a tracheostomy. She developed a neurovascular condition that causes transient ischemic attacks, otherwise known as mini-strokes, and severe headaches, which require morphine to control. And God bless her, that neurovascular condition has caused learning difficulties. On top of that, before the neurovascular condition kicked in, Zoe was born with ADHD and ASD, and she is dyspraxic. And she has the... She would be diagnosed as severely dyslexic if she was in a mainstream school, but we've just switched her from mainstream to specialist, where she is thriving and doesn't need the diagnosis to get the support that she needs. So that's worked out well. So, mutant, that's me, OSCS, mutant. Mother to Zoe, 10, light of my life, joy, inspiration. Wife, yes, to Adrian. We've been together for over 20 years. Really don't know how he's managed that. He's classified as neurotypical, but he hasn't been assessed. And quite frankly, I do believe in physics laws of attraction, that like attracts like, and I have my suspicions. But let's not go there. Autistic, yes, I am autistic. It took me 6 years to push to get Zoe assessed for ADHD. When she was in nursery, she went to a speech and language unit because she was delayed in her speech development due to her tracheostomy. And as that was the only disability she had at the time, she was qualified for the speech and language unit, and she excelled in every area except attention and listening. That stayed flat. And I said, do you think she could have ADHD? And they said, she's 3.5, she's too young to assess. But I'm quite a logical person, being autistic, although I didn't know I was autistic then. And the idea that all the graphs went like that, and attention listening went like that, kind of indicated to me that she might have ADHD. We then got into reception, and an occupational therapist identified that she had quite a lot of sensory processing needs and that she was very easily distracted. And I said, could she have ADHD? And they said, well, she's a very complicated little girl. Now, I thought, she's got ADHD. I know she's got ADHD. And it took until year 2, when she had a neuropsychological assessment at Great Ormond Street, which she has to have every 2 years, every 2 years to assess her neurovascular condition. And we were doing the assessment, and the neuropsychologist at Great Ormond Street said to me, has this child ever been assessed for ADHD? And I said, no. And she said, I think she should be. And I said, please put that in your report, because that will get the damn assessment done. So lo and behold, she puts it in a report. 1 month later, we get sent for an assessment, and she gets diagnosed with ADHD. But because of her neurovascular condition, the community paediatrician didn't want to put her on medication. So she sent me to a clinical psychologist with Zoe. And in the assessment, well, it was an appointment to talk about how to manage Zoe's ADHD without medication. But during the course of the appointment, the clinical psychologist said, how would you feel if I put her forward for an ASD assessment? And there have been a lot of occasions in our life when I said, you know how autistic kids do that? Well, Zoe does that. And for some reason, I did not put 2 and 2 together. Or maybe I was in denial, or maybe I just didn't recognise it as being an issue because I didn't know I was autistic too. I just thought she was a lot like me. Anywho, the clinical psychologist recommended I read several books. The first was The Diagnostic Criteria for Asperger's Syndrome by Tony Attwood, who is a god in the Asperger field. And I read that and I recognised a lot of traits that my father has, and I recognised a lot of traits that I have in common with him and that I saw in Zoe. And I thought, Then I also read that it presents very differently in girls. So I bought about 4 books on Asperger's in girls, and I read them, and there were tables in the back with all the traits, and there was one particular book that had 238 traits written in the back, and I had 167 of them, which is approximately 70%, and even in my mind I thought, So I went to the doctor, and I said, I think I need to be assessed for Asperger's. Which in my area, there is a team that only diagnoses adults only for Asperger's. They don't assess them for ASD. It's just the Asperger element of ASD. And so I got sent to them. They sent me paperwork. I filled it in. It was at that point that I realised, I can hear electricity in the walls. I'd never really realised that was a thing. I thought that was silence. But of course, silence is meant to be nothing, and I just was never really cottoned on to the fact that slight buzzing I can hear in silence is actually electricity. Who knew? Anywho, I got sent for an assessment, and it's an assessment of 1.5 hours, 3 times, and they were halfway through the second session, and she knew I was an Aspie. I thought I was really borderline, because I've got what's called a very high social drive, and I love being around people, and I have loads of friends, and I knew I had issues because that's why I got myself assessed. But at the same time, it was really hard to identify with what I saw in the autistic kids in the special needs arena, because of course I didn't realise that at that time the largest group of people being assessed and diagnosed with autism were women in their 40s whose kids had been diagnosed, and then they recognised it in themselves and realised that that's where their difficulties came from. So I have a lot of difficulties to do with emotions, with understanding relationships, with being honest to the point of offensive sometimes, as I've been told. Anyway, it's just part of who I am. I don't think of myself as disabled in any way, shape or form. I think of myself as me. And yes, there are things that I find very, very difficult to understand and to let go of, and I do have a tendency to perseverate, and I have hyperfocus, and I have misophonia, which means that if someone slurps tea near me, I want to stab them through the head with a sharp knife, because it raises that level of anxiety in me. And I have synesthesia, so I see colours and smells in colour. So I won't wear certain perfumes with certain clothes because they don't go together, because that's not the right colour to go with that colour. And it's just a bit weird. I have a million other traits, like I don't identify with the feminine. I see myself very much as not so much tomboyish, but half male, half female. Does that make sense? I am very much a woman. I am not transgender. I know that for a fact, but I don't see myself or identify with the feminine. I just see myself as me. It's more of a unisex situation, I suppose. This is very honest. Oh, and I'm not wearing any makeup despite my passion for it, because I decided that my first video should be more honest and it should be more real, and I shouldn't put the masks on that I use to go outside. And that's what I see makeup as. I see makeup as a brilliant way of covering who you are, or lifting your spirits, or changing your emotional state so that you can face the world. It's very much a mask for me. Although on other people, I'd use it as a way to enhance their features and make them look beautiful. Because I did do a makeup artist course, so I am trained. God, I'm going on. I really hope I'm not going on too much. So yes, my passions in life. I'm 45. I believe in looking the best you can for your age. I don't believe in looking younger than you are, because I've had a brilliant life. I've had a life of ups and downs, roller coasters. I've had some really dark times. I've had some really bright times. I've got a family that I love. I have lived a full 45 years, and I don't want to be anything but 45 years old at this point, because that's how old I am, and I'm very grateful for it. I have friends who never made it to 45. So if I have a melon streak, which I do, I'm going to show that off, because there are people who dye their hair for that. I don't believe in being something that you're not. Probably the autism and the honesty thing. I'm really fixated on it. I just think that life is a gift and you should celebrate living it. And even though I suffer from depression and anxiety, thanks to my autism, I see that as a gift, because it gives me compassion and empathy. Well, affective empathy, not cognitive empathy. That I have to work really hard on. I'm passionate about makeup. I'm passionate about crochet. I love crochet. I crochet a lot. And in fact, I am the local coordinator for for the Octopus for a Preemie group. So I crochet octopods for premature babies to help them to heal and get home as fast as they can. And to not pull their tubes out, because I had a daughter with a nasogastric tube who pulled her tube out every single feed, and it is a mission. She now has a gastrostomy. She had a gastrostomy, got rid of it at 2.5, has had to have it reinserted because she doesn't drink enough to manage her neurovascular condition and keep herself hydrated. So we have to use a gastrostomy every night. I'm passionate about inclusion. I think that disabled people offer such a gift to society, and their quality of life is so far better than being disabled. Is not a negative thing. It's a different thing, but it's not a less thing. And yes, there are children who are seriously compromised in their ability to communicate and their ability to move, but they still have a huge quality of life. And when you spend time in a children's hospice, as I have done, and continue to do, then you realise that actually all life is a gift, and we need to include disabled people, profoundly disabled people, so that the general public can learn empathy, compassion, kindness, because that's what it brings out in you. It teaches you love and the power of love, and it's amazing. And anyone who's ever watched the Paralympics knows what an inspiration disabled people can be. So, yeah, rock on the disabled people. I'm very passionate about diversity. I don't think anyone has the right to judge anyone else for the people that they love. I don't think that anyone has the right to tell people who they can and can't get married. They're not asking you to marry someone. They're just saying that they would like the right to get married. So yes, a very big supporter of the LGBTQ part of society, because I have a really strong social conscience, another Aspie trait. So I was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, but as you may or may not have heard, Hans Asperger sent disabled children like mine to their deaths in Nazi Germany. So I do not refer myself to myself as an Aspie any longer. I don't use the phrase Asperger's syndrome if I can avoid it. I am autistic, because autism comes in all sorts of forms. Some of it is really obvious, some of it not so much. I have people questioning whether I'm autistic because I love makeup, because I have loads of friends, because I have a really high social drive. They question whether I'm actually autistic. But if you've ever been in an argument with me, especially one that has an emotional base, then you would see my autism rear its head. I get really, really obsessed as well. And I don't really understand how friendships work. I never have. I've got friends and I love them deeply and I'm deeply loyal. But at what point we became friends, I haven't got a clue. I also don't understand what the parameters of friendship are. I don't understand why people get so upset with other people about behaviours within friendships. And I burn bridges. So I have turned my back on friendships in the past where they've crossed a line with me and that's it. I'm no longer friends with them and I don't miss them, because when you cross that line with me, you just prove that you weren't my friend in the first place. And what else can I say? I don't know. This is me, and I am coming to terms with the idea that I'm autistic. I still struggle with it. I mean, I know I am. I know I have a lot of the traits. I understand why I was diagnosed. I completely agree with the diagnosis in my head, but in my heart, I struggle because I see autistic people who struggle so much more than me. And it makes me feel like, how can I claim to be autistic when they are clearly struggling more than I do? But just because their battles are more obvious doesn't make my battle less important, I suppose. I needed the diagnosis. Why did I get diagnosed? Why did I ask for an assessment? Very simply, because I needed to know, because I perseverated till it was coming out of my ears and driving me insane, because it fueled my depression and anxiety, because when you don't understand a lot of what's going on around you, it can make you feel really odd. When I was growing up, I don't confide in people very much about my feelings, half the time because quite simply I can't identify them. I don't know what I'm feeling until the feeling gets so huge that I blow, or have a meltdown as it's commonly known. I also go into shutdown really effectively and become selectively mute. So if something becomes overwhelming, I'll close my mouth and I won't be able to open it again. I will literally say I can't speak. And it means I can't speak. My brain's not working. It just doesn't function. I can't speak. It's not personal. I'm not sulking. I am simply unable to speak. And people don't get that. They start thinking about it from their point of view, but they don't understand that my brain is not the same as theirs. But of course, if you've met one autistic person, you've only met one autistic person. My daughter has ASD. I have ASD. We are two very different kettles of fish. However, it does give me an understanding for her, and she loves the fact that I'm autistic too, that I got diagnosed, because it reaffirms to her why I understand where she's coming from. And I can say to her, Zoe, I know exactly what you mean. I know what it feels like to have something stuck in your head. I know how frustrating that is. But I have so much experience of how to try and get rid of that. I've got all these little tricks. Let me help you. And she will listen, because she knows that I know what that's like, because I'm autistic too. So yes, I got diagnosed to put my mind at rest. I got diagnosed to understand my depression and anxiety. I got diagnosed to understand why I am so different in my head. I got diagnosed to try and unpick this social personality I've got that is not the authentic me. And I still can't leave it behind. I can't let go of it. It's like a protective shield that makes people think that I'm not autistic. It's a complete mask. It's a social mask. Inside, I'm still that little girl who barely spoke, who just watched the world go by and tried to figure out what the heck's going on. And my social mask is based on the fact that I come from an extremely extroverted family of very larger-than-life characters who are great fun to be around and a little bit mad. And because I spent so much time with them, and because I had a cousin 4 months older than me that I spent practically every day with until I was 8, I studied and I mimicked and I did exactly what an autistic woman does to get by and to bond and to be part of the community. And although part of my social mask is me, a lot of it is just a very exaggerated version of me. And I would like to be able to unpick that and learn how to be comfortable in public being the authentic me. I just haven't figured that out yet. And I sort of want to share that with everyone, because I think there are a lot of women out there who probably feel the same way I do. And I want to see if I can help other people do that. The main reason why I started this channel is because my daughter's 10 and has had special needs her entire life. And I have experimented. I have spent money. I have been creative. I have made things. I have done so much to try and help her get through her day-to-day life, to try and encourage her to be the best version of herself that she can be, the calmest version of herself that she can be. And I have done courses with my husband called Understanding Autism or Managing Anger. And in those courses, I realised that a lot of the women and the men, the parents basically, who were coming to these courses were new. They were newly diagnosed. Their children were either newly diagnosed, had been diagnosed for a year, or were on the waiting list to be assessed for diagnosis. But they clearly had sensory processing issues. They seriously had social communication issues. And in these courses, I would start talking, and I would, in my way, start taking over, because that's what I do. And I would start sharing what I have learned. And my husband suddenly realised that actually I know a lot. And these parents don't know any of this. They don't know what oral motor stimulation is. They don't understand what a proprioceptive sense is or a vestibular sense is, or how that impacts your day-to-day life. They don't understand why their children, where their sensory feedback is coming from, or what they might need to support their feedback, or what they might need to calm themselves down. And I started talking, and these people were all writing notes. And I thought, well, hang on. Why am I just sitting in my kitchen knowing all this stuff and not sharing it, so that other parents who are starting out might learn something, or they might find something that works for them? Because it takes a lot of experimentation to find out what works for your kid. It takes a lot. But that's what I'm hoping I can achieve from this channel. I've gone on a lot, but I just wanted to give you a rundown of who I am, why I am the way I am, what to expect. I can tell you right now, don't expect me not to wear makeup in every single video, because this is quite weird for me. I'm looking at my face and I'm thinking, crikey, this is going onto YouTube and everybody can see it. And that's making me feel a bit anxious. But I promised myself I was going to be authentic. So authentic I shall be on this occasion, as far as the face is concerned. Next time, I'm hoping to look a bit better. Anyway, lovely chatting. Hopefully, I can help. And if you want to know anything, just drop me a line. Thank you for listening. Bye.